So we are so excited here in Austin to welcome you guys. We have never had a conference on siblings, and we've also never had four presenters. So just the combination alone is already creating some excitement. So thank you so much for coming. And I'm curious how this topic came to be for you guys, how you started to present on this together. Tell us a little bit about that.
5 years ago, I had my second child, and I was feeling particularly nervous about how that was going to go for my older son and now my younger child. And so I did what all psychologists do when you're nervous about something, you make a workshop about it. It was natural for me to think of these three in doing it together, because in our training to become group therapists at Rutgers, we found, or I found that there was a lot of sibling transference that came up even between us as we were working to learn how to become group leaders. And so in many ways, the three of them had become professional siblings to me, and thought it would be especially helpful to work with them to make more sense of this, how to help siblings figure things out together, and how I could figure things out with these three. Still working on that, but these workshops have helped a lot.
So y'all met in graduate school.
Right.
So Brett had the brainchild of creating a group training clinic at Rutgers, and we were all part of the formation. We kind of jumped on board with Brett. First it was Brett and Ben as the co-coordinators of that clinic, and then Yair and I succeeded them. And in that process, we were co-leading groups in that training clinic, and we all participated in a supervision group with Dr. David Panzer, who was the teacher of the group program at GAZAP, the Graduate School of Professional Psychology at Rutgers. And so we had the father figure, we had the sibling relationships in his supervision group, we had our own competition that would come up, and challenges that would come up in our relationships as co-leaders and with one another. And what's been really special, Brett, Yair, and Ben actually initiated this workshop, the three of them, and they brought me on board after about a year, right around the start of COVID. And at that same time, we started doing a consultation group with David Panzer every other week. So we've kind of continued since COVID began to have that experience of seeing what kinds of sibling transferences come up for us and having the opportunity to work through them. So for me, just having the opportunity to work with these guys again, who are like my professional brother. I mean, they feel like true brothers to me at this point. I just love the idea of having more time with them. So I easily jumped on board when I was invited to join the group. And then it's been so much more meaningful because we're kind of doing the work as we're teaching the work and continuing to learn about our own countertransferences that come up and transferences that come up. And I feel like it's so deepened the work that we do as therapists and deepened our relationships and been healing because it's really brought to light for me certain roles that I've taken in my family, certain things that I carry with me from that initial foundation of sibling relationships. And it's just shown me how important a workshop like this can be for therapists.
Yeah, I would add to that, one of my favorite aspects of this has been, most of us have attended AGPA on a yearly basis since graduate school. So we've had the opportunity to get together for a few days every year to reconnect in person and hang out and have fun. That's been a fixture in my calendar every year, and it's been a way to stay connected. And I think our hope for workshops and conferences like this is maybe to give other people kind of the same kind of experience of coming back together with people they consider their professional siblings.
Absolutely. Sounds very meaningful.
I think from my perspective, until Yair presented the idea of doing a workshop on siblings, I don't know that I had actually thought about our relationship in the context of siblings. So it was a helpful reframe. And when it did become part of our workshop and we started presenting and including aspects of our own relationships with one another, it sort of became more salient and more obvious. Like, you know, for instance, the fact that I tend to look up to Ben, the fact that Yair found our recruitment of him for the group clinic to be something that was a little bit manipulative, maybe. The fact that Terri has sometimes felt not included in certain aspects, like all of those things sort of became more obvious and more salient after I think the workshop was originally presented to us by Yair. So I think it's been really helpful to see things in that light. And then now I can't stop seeing things in that light.
Yeah, I was wondering how that felt, Terri, to be added late. Like, I think I'd immediately feel like, wait, well, why wasn't I included at the beginning? And you may not want to speak to that, but I did wonder that.
I mean, I understood it because they decided to do it at an AGPA conference that I was not at. I will admit that I don't go every single year to AGPA. I plan to going forward, but when my kids were home, I'd only go when it was in New York because that's close to me. So I understood them doing it, but I was sad that I wasn't part of it. And there have definitely been times where I'm like, hey, remember the sister? And it can be difficult being the only female, the only sister in the group.
Absolutely, I bet. Yeah.
And I've never had a sister, whereas I think Ben and Yair both have. So it's interesting to have a sister, finally, for all these years.
How has this work changed your group leadership? Are there things that you now look for or think about in your leading your groups now that you're doing this work for so long?
I can start this one. For me, it's about competition. One of the things that I've rarely looked at in the groups that I run is competition. I don't tend to see it. And ever since this group and then our supervision group with Dr. Panzer, I see competition, and I'm encouraged to see competition among members of the groups that I lead. And when you start looking for it, it seems much more obvious. It just seems much more clear. And that's been a really helpful reframe for me, as opposed to not looking at it or not being able to see it.
I'll just jump on that. One of the things David, I think, really emphasizes, and I've seen or come to appreciate in our experience together, is the potential healthiness of competition, the benefits of it when it's seen and recognized and talked about and understood. I mean, I know it can be destructive, but there are other ways in which it can be really connecting. And the leader of our group emphasizes that, and so being able to look for it in the groups we run as a connective force has been a nice change.
I think I agree with what both you and what Ben and Brett have said. In addition to that, I tend to also look for what are the kinds of roles that people take in the group and how is that reflective of the roles they had as siblings in their family. I found that can be really powerful, that people tend to repeat what they experienced growing up and expect similar responses, and being able to explore that with the members, helping them to recognize that they tend to jump into those same roles. What does that mean for them? How does that impact their relationships with people? Are they getting the same responses that they did from their family of origin? And can they try out different roles in the group and expand what their relationships, their role in relationships can look like?
Yeah.
I want to add to that, that I feel like I definitely have learned to do that more with my clients, but I think that's also been true for myself, that, my first training to become a group therapist was in my family of origin, where I felt like I was led to be my sibling's keeper. And I don't think I was aware of how much the way that I learned how to be a caretaker in my family of origin reflected the way that I was showing up as a group leader in my work with my clients. And I think that having created a new way of being, having a role in our supervision group and looking at the parallel process that happens, I've learned a lot about different options for how to be a leader, and ways that maybe the way that I learned to become a leader in my family of origin was holding me back or holding other people back from finding a more meaningful and connected way of dealing with things. And I feel like that's been true for me as well, that I've learned how to let go of certain roles and explore what it's like to have more flexible options.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about having more vision as well as more room to try on different things. It does that. What you're saying makes me think of the title. I was curious about, am I my sibling's keeper? You're speaking to that a little bit. Is that what you mean? Like, do I have to take care of them, or what's my role? Because we think about it a lot with parents, but not as much with siblings sometimes. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I noticed, because we've been doing this now, I'm not sure how many years, but I finally am able to say no. I am not my sibling's keeper. When we started this workshop, the answer was yes. It feels very freeing.
You're
welcome. You're welcome.
The check could be in the mail, right, Ben? He could just pay you for that.
Sort of going back to the first thing that you said, Yair, did it affect how you view your own kids' relationship with each other?
Yeah, definitely. It's given me a lot of insight into what I want to offer them in terms of helping them, understanding more about what might be coming up for them as they are grappling with being a sibling, and given me a lot of insight into my own blind spots and the ways that I might get in their way if I'm not more aware of what I know now.
Yeah, so I have just a single child. I have a daughter who's 7. And one of the things that has been somewhat painful, I guess, is that seeing how enriching, I mean, I guess I knew that sibling relationships were important. I have a sibling myself, but seeing how enriching the sibling relationships can be and learning more about them, to not be able to offer that to my own child is kind of feels sad. It feels like a loss. And so I'm hoping that some people that attend the workshop and maybe are only children or only have one child themselves, maybe be able to relate to that, or maybe able to think about that, because I think it's important. And of course, siblings don't have to only be biological siblings. I think that there's greater inclusivity in the way that we think about siblings or cousins or people in our family. But yeah, it makes a difference, and it does feel like a loss.
Yeah, I appreciate you adding that piece. I think that'll probably come up in the workshop, as well as people who aren't parents. They may have feelings that get stirred up around this as well. You clearly have done so much work on this. I'm excited about the container you're bringing to Austin, because when you present the places you've gone to, we'll have people who in the audience who will be able, or in the membership, will be able to go places inside themselves maybe they wouldn't had you not all done your work. And to that mind, I wonder, are there any questions or things that would be helpful for people to think about as they approach coming, or as they consider whether they want to come?
We, at the risk of stepping on a line that we sometimes use at the outset of workshops in the past, I think people sometimes come to our workshop with the fantasy that they're going to repair the long-lasting trauma of their sibling relationships. And we're always disappointed to disabuse people of that idea. But I think coming with some some curiosity about, you know, how those sibling relationships have affected their sense of self and their ways of relating to other people, and the openness to perhaps see it in a new way, is something that I think would benefit people a lot.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking since we've got y'all scheduled about how it affects my group leadership. Are there things you've noticed that either participants or yourselves have learned about looking at things through this lens? You see yourself differently as a leader? I mean, yeah, you referenced it a bit about the siblings keeper, but are there other aspects?
Certainly, I mean, one of the things that's going to come up in our workshop is co-leadership, because it's not just the members of the groups that are siblings, but if you have a co-leadership relationship, then that's a sibling relationship. I'm thinking back to graduate school when I was co-leading a group with a woman, and we were supervised by somebody who had a lot of experience with group. And so we were siblings in the context of our supervisory relationship. And then we were acknowledging sibling relationships as they occurred in the group. And so it's sort of an interesting sort of leveling process. But I guess the thing that struck me is just how infrequently I think the idea of sibling relationships comes up in the context of sort of the theory and practice of group psychotherapy. Like, people, when they think about running groups, often think about parental relationships or romantic relationships, and don't as frequently think I mean, it never occurred to me before Yair brought the idea of this workshop to us how little I thought about the nature of sibling relationships in the groups that I run. And I think one of the things that people have commented on after they've attended our workshops has been this sort of the same sense. Like, I didn't realize that this was not something that I thought very much about. There's not a lot of literature on sibling relationships. So I think maybe just becoming aware of this entire new layer of relationship in the context of groups. I think if people get that out of this experience, then I think that would be amazing.
I think it's also valuable to think about that. You know, we talk a lot about the vertical transference where it's thinking about the leader as the parent, and countertransference we may have may not only be in that vertical sense, but also horizontal. Like, yes, you have the horizontal transference among the members of the group and their sibling transferences, but there could also be sibling transference to us as leaders or towards members that we experience. And so one of the things that I like about having done this work that I think influences me as a therapist is trying to be mindful of all of that and recognizing that a sibling transference could come up for me, not just for the members of the group. Absolutely.
It adds so much layer to what you can look at and be aware of. Yes. And, you know, Austin has a lot of co-leadership. So that's an exciting layer too, thinking about that transference. So as you can see, our breakout group leaders, we got a lot of really good ones. So Austin's known for that. So that's exciting. And I co-lead and single lead, and it's definitely a sibling relationship. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed the groups that I've co-led more so than the groups that I've led into, you know, just me as the leader. It's hard in private practice because you're dealing with a lot of things. But to the extent to which I can lead a group with somebody else, I always prefer it. It's just a much richer experience for me. That may not be true for everybody, but it's true for me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I really missed it when you guys all left and I was running groups by myself outside of graduate school. I wish that you all lived nearby so we could co-lead together.
Well, you could start a virtual group of co-lead. I'm just pushing you to do more groups. But.
I was thinking about that. Like, somebody, like, how do I get licensed in another state? So maybe I could co-lead a group. Thought about that. Yeah.
So in addition to the things we've already mentioned, are there other things you hope participants will take away, like either techniques or theoretical ideas or?
What personally I find when I go to workshops is I learn the most from the lived experience that happens in the room. And I do extrapolate from that to how that might be true for my clients and how that might be true in my work as a clinician. But our hope is that there will be a meaningful and personal experience in the workshop where we'll have a chance to look at our own early childhood experience with siblings, or what it's like to now be in adult relationships with our siblings, and how all of that has affected how we see ourselves and how we show up in the relationships that we have, as well as look at how our sibling experience has shaped how we are as colleagues with one another in this organization together, and also when you do run groups together, you do things together. Because I think that one of the things that I've come to really appreciate in doing this workshop is just how much our early life experiences with siblings is a template that affects the way that we are in all kinds of peer relationships, and including our marriages, including our professional affiliation, societies, and communities. And it's been a really helpful vantage point to be thinking a lot more about how much that's true.
I love that, because you're really talking about ourselves as our own instrument. So we can learn theory and we can learn techniques, but the focus of this workshop seems to be on the internal work, our internal history, our countertransference, our early templates. And that, I agree with you, that's the thing that makes lasting change as a leader and a participant. So I love that that's the focus here.
I was thinking of it in the context of like I hope this doesn't sound too far afield, but the thought that I had was like the James Webb telescope, it looks at light on multiple different wavelengths, and you can actually put the different forms of light one on top of each other to get an image that's much more clear and comprehensive. And I feel like this is just one of those layers that's sort of put on top. Like it's not just that it adds something new, but it actually clarifies something that we've already seen before in a way that offers a much sort of more precise way of understanding relationships as a whole. And that's kind of adding that new layer and seeing with more precision, I think, is sort of the way that I think about this and what I hope people would get out of this experience. Just being able to see it a little bit more clearly.
I love that metaphor.
That was really beautiful, Brett.
Thanks, man.
You landed that. I was worried for a minute.
I know, I could tell. I saw you looking at me like, I don't see. I don't know
where he's going with this.
Yeah, but
Nailed the landing.
That's right.
Yeah. So how about anything you guys hope to gain from coming to us or from our community or our city by presenting here?
Yeah, my very first time at AGPA was in Austin in 2006 or five or six. And I loved it. Food, the music, and hopefully you'll be past the horrific heat wave.
November for sure. I should knock on wood, but yes, November should be good. Yeah.
I'm excited to get back there, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys, you all invited us. It seems like it's going to be a really good time, so I appreciate all of that.
We all. Oh, go ahead, Terri.
No, I was just going to say I'm excited to see Austin, but I'm excited to connect with all of you and get a sense of how people are doing the work there versus in New York or California. Kind of, I think whenever we do a presentation, we learn from everyone who's attending as well as they're learning from us, and having kind of that interchange is very exciting.
Love that. You guys know this, but just for people who will be seeing this video, I first came to your workshop, I think the first year you presented it, at least 5, if not 7 years ago. And I was only in there for 20 minutes because I was the observer at AGPA at that time. And it stayed with me all these years, those 20 minutes. So that's the degree to which I think your workshop carries impact and depth.
Wow.
Very impactful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling being left out at this moment because I don't think I was part of that workshop. that
Yeah, I
you
don't think you were,
observed.
Terry. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's an understandable feeling. I wish
Yeah.
you'd been there. Yeah.
We can explore it later.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
You may hear about it later.
Appreciate that, Allison.
Yeah, well, I do what I can. We've started the work. Yeah. Anything I haven't asked or that y'all would like to add or say, just for people who are going to be seeing this?
Have a good experience.
Yeah,
those of you that attend that. Have a good
I'm very
experience.
excited to be doing this, and I think I know it's going to be a lot of fun, and we hope that that you guys think so too.
Well, every call we've had with y'all has been fun, so I think that's a really good sign. Yeah. Well, thanks again, guys. Seriously, for taking so much time out today on a Friday. Appreciate this, and we'll let.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. All right. See you guys later. Bye.
Take care.
Yeah, see you soon.